Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. We have a movie review today. A somewhat surprising movie to me. Popped up out there in internet land. Figured I'd give it a chance. It seemed to me to sort of be one of those drive-in B crime movies. And nothing more than that. But as I watched it, wow, it struck me as something more than that. It's a film noir, but also a psychological thriller, and, frankly, an exploitation film. And it manages to be all those three things in kind of a good way, rather than in one of those things sort of subtracting from the others in terms of the overall quality of the film. So we're talking about Screaming Mimi, 1958. Now it's based upon a 1949 novel by Frederic Brown, maybe best known now for writing the short story Arena, which was turned into an episode of Outer Limits, and the classic Star Trek episode in which Captain Kirk fights the Gorn. Stars Anita Ekberg, who was the Swedish beauty of the time, and her presence is partly why you could call it a bit of an exploitation film. Phil Carey, who probably best known for a lot of folks playing Asa Buchanan on the soap opera, I believe it was One Life to Live. Does a great job in this film. I've seen him in a few others. I wasn't massively impressed. I really liked him in this one. We get a lot of good character actors. Harry Townsend, Cherney, interesting. She was like the queen of the Beatniks at one point. Didn't do much in terms of film, but she was an artist, poet, dancer. Great look. She has the prototypical Beatnik girl look. So help me. Screenplay Robert Blees, again based on the book by Frederic Brown. Now the name you want to really focus in on this is the very top one, Burnett Guffey, ASC. What takes this from being just a B picture, and remember, B pictures, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Primarily just means you don't have an A-list actor or actress leading the film. And to be an A-list actor or actress, you had to have some talent, but you especially had to have a particular screen presence. There are a lot of seriously good actors who don't have that screen presence. They don't play lead, but they're very good. And in a movie like a film noir, sometimes that's even better. Makes the film more grounded and more intimate. But the name you want to look at there, Burnett Guffey, he is the cinematographer. This movie is gorgeous. Use of shadow, the staging, the angles, etc. It's what made me decide I'm going to do a review of this on my channel. It's too good not to. Produced by Harry Joe Brown, Robert Fellows. They got a ton of movies to their credit. Directed by Gerd Oswald. Guy did film noir, did some westerns, did some comedies, did a lot of TV. Did a nice job here. So we open the film. If you got Anita Ekberg in your film, this is as good a way to open it as any. But I'll tell you what, it turns dark quick. You have her on the beach, running up the beach, up the stairs, to this outside shower. And all of a sudden, this psycho with a knife appears, escaped from an asylum, and attacks her to an extent. Now, here's a little spoiler that I'm going to spoil without my little spoiler sign up, because this is going to be a big deal to some people, for sure. There's a whole website devoted to it. Does the dog live, or does the dog survive? There is a dog at the beginning of this that does not survive. The psycho gets the dog first. There's another dog in this that does survive. But if that's a problem for you, you might want to flip through it. You don't see anything. You hear a yelp, but I know that upsets a lot of people. I'm not usually thrilled with it either, but just so you know, it's out there. So this man's attacking her, And the guy who owns the beach house, who's a friend, at first I thought he was a brother. I think he was just a friend, emerges with a rifle, shoots the guy right in front of her. Traumatic event, as anyone could tell. She ends up in the same asylum that the guy escaped from, with a team of doctors who are going to look after her. And she's in a bad state. But one of the doctors, you kind of tell right from the get-go, is very taken with her. And that's probably not a good thing in your psychologist. And he stares at her. And he does treat her, though. And he actually does a fairly good job treating her, but he's also controlling her. And so here we have the beginning of this. You have a woman, a very fragile psyche. She's getting treatment, but she's also being controlled by the man who's treating her because he has fallen in love with her. Although you get the feeling that the love is never quite returned. While this is going on, we see the man who owned the beach house, who's an artist, start sculpting a statue. And that's going to become important to the story. And so we see this man, candlelight dinner with his patient. Okay, clearly wrong. We flip frames now. Not just exactly sure how much time has gone by. But I don't know if they ever tell you where this is. I got the feeling San Francisco. Golly, I'm not sure if they ever make that obvious. But we're seeing the nightlife, the toast of the coast. Oh, yeah, Barbary Coast. So, yeah, it probably is San Francisco. We end up at El Madhouse. El Madhouse presents your favorite hostess, Joanne Gypsy Masters, played by Gypsy Rose Lee. Pretty good acting-wise. Pretty good acting-wise in this. Most of the performances are pretty good, and a few are a little above average. The new discovery, Yolanda. Okay, now, when we first meet this woman, she is Virginia Wilson. Now she's working under the name Yolanda. And her doctor, Greenwood, also has an assumed name. So he got her out of that asylum, but maybe not in a way that he should have. All right? And she was apparently a dancer before all this happened. She's gone back to that. Now, fragile psyche, you've been through a traumatic experience. You have a controlling doctor who is sort of helping you. And then you go work in sort of exotic dancing, not quite stripping, might not be the best place for you. We got this cool jazz. Well, they said trio, didn't they? Hold on. You don't see it there. I think they called it trio, but we got four guys up there. Good jazz. Then we get a singing bartender who's rather odd, and I really wondered where the movie was going when he showed up. But it doesn't last long. Some great crowd shots. Gypsy Rose Lee working the room. And then we see Yolanda. And here's where you get the more exploitation aspect of the film. Because you get this dance. She's not overly clothed. The crowd is staring at her. That is our beatnik queen right there. And she goes through this, and the crowd just is hushed. And they're just staring intently at this as this woman. You know, there's a little bit of performance art to it. And, you know, there's the sex, etc. And this is where we meet Phil Carey, who is playing Bill Sweeney. He's a reporter. He's showing up to see if there's any stories, anything worth doing. He's at the bar. He's right next to her doctor, who is now just posing as her manager. Catches the show. Wants to go backstage and meet her. Gypsy Rose Lee. I'm going to call her Gypsy Rose Lee, because that's basically she's playing herself. Invites him back. Now here you're going to see some of the shots, and I think you've already seen a few. You get the idea of the cinematography, the use of shadow. We get the use of mirrors quite a bit. We see her in the mirror. We see him in the mirror as she's sitting there. And as he's talking to Yolanda, who's not that interested in talking to him, he happens to find this statue. It's the same one, essentially. It's a copy, but it's the same one that guy was sculpting. And so he's talking to her. Nice shots of the faces, just beautifully filmed. Greenwood is in there, and he's clearly instantly annoyed. This guy's encroaching on what he considers his territory. And so, even though, like I said, I don't think it's really ever been his territory. All right, I'm going to throw up the spoiler warning now. And you could see the way Greenwood sort of clings to her, tries to be above her, over her. Again, we get a nice mirror shot. They're talking, they're arguing. She goes out for a walk. And you end up seeing this crowd gathered by, as she looks like she's having some kind of an episode down in the stairwell. That is her dog. He's guarding her. The police show up, and then they notice that she has been stabbed. And so they manage to deal with the dog. Phil Carey is there. He speaks to the dog in a very calm voice, gives the police a chance to kind of get around, get down in there, secure the dog, and get her to a hospital. So the incident has sparked a memory in Sweeney. And so back at his office, he looks up, here's the newspaper, slasher attacks again, dancer saved by dog. There has been another attack similar to this. And he looks up that old paper, and what he notices, and you can kind of see it up here, another copy of that statue. So he thinks we got some kind of a serial killer. There's a big story in this. So he's going to work with it. Now he goes to the hospital, talking with her. She can't really remember anything. Convinces his editor, we got a story here. Let's do it. Starts tracking down the story. Brings this statue in to this place. And the guy's like, yeah, we sold those, etc. And so again, you get a bit of a whodunit. Who's the slasher? Who's the killer? Somebody we don't know? Is it the guy who made the statues? Is it the doctor? I think they're trying to throw a little bit of stuff around. Now, here's another element that's sort of in the exploitation realm. Now, earlier in a crowd scene, you get this pan across, or the shot of these two women. They're wearing suits. So this is 58, and that would be a reference to the fact that the two women are lesbians. Now, my first thought was, okay, they're just trying to sort of set the scene that this is a club that's kind of, kind of weird, kind of kooky, kind of beatnik, whatever, that kind of thing. But at one point, Sweeney goes to talk to Gypsy Rose Lee, and the cigarette girl is in there. And he kind of gets the brush off, and he goes, oh, I didn't realize this was just a party for two. And you go, oh, okay. But here's the weird thing. So why are they kind of introducing a little bit of a lesbian angle to the film? Is it just exploitation? I wondered at the time. And honestly, it really doesn't come into the story beyond this. But I did wonder if maybe they were trying to suggest that maybe Gypsy Rose Lee, is involved in what's going on, because maybe she is attracted to, Yolanda. And they were trying to maybe set her up as a potential suspect. They didn't try very hard, though. So I'm still not sure if it was just sort of a, window dressing, or maybe it's just, let's be daring. It's 58. We can maybe get away with something like this. I don't know. It's there, but it's not there very much. But there it is. So Sweeney ends up back at the club. You get another performance by Yolanda. And again, you get all these great shots of the people. They're looking, they're leering. There's something lurid about it, And you have this woman who's going through psychological turmoil dancing up on the stage. very well staged. It's very well filmed. There's supposed to be a little party for her. She leaves, goes back out with her dog, ends up on the exact same street where she got stabbed. And Sweeney follows her, and they end up getting together. And I believe getting together in a way that she never got together with that doctor. It's part of his frustration. One of the best shot scenes in the film, because you have a light outdoors that's blinking on and off. And so you get this moment, and then dark, and then back. The dog is lying there on the other side. There's that gulf of shadow between them. You get this close up. Again, it goes dark. They come back at a slightly different angle. Really, when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is more than just a B picture. Guffey did a fantastic job. He's saying, you need to get away from all this. Come with me. We'll get you away from all this. So he goes to pick her up the next morning, and she's all ready to go. But now she doesn't want to see him. The doctor's gotten to her. And they have an argument, and you see the doctor. Notice how he's smaller. He looks smaller than the other two. You know, Towns is great in this thing. He does a great job with it. So Sweeney's a little taken back by all this. Get some information as to where this statue initially came from in the first place. And he goes and talks to the guy, and he gets the whole story. And that's a little bit of a clue of what's going on. He also has the newspaper plant a story that's meant to maybe draw out the murderer. And you see Towns looking at it, and they're definitely hinting to you that Towns might be the serial killer. So there's a stakeout. Towns arrives at Yolanda's apartment. Knows that she has kept this statue. And he says, you got to get rid of it. This is a focal point for your psychosis. You have to get rid of this thing. She refuses. They argue. He finds the statue, and he's going to take it. And she gets this really cold look on her face. And kind of by doing that, sort of signals to her dog, this man is an enemy. And so he reaches up to strike the dog, and the dog's barking. You know, she's just cool and a little detached. The dog rises up, and ultimately the guy falls backwards out of the window. Of course, the guys stake out, hear this. They rush outdoors. They find him lying on the ground, bleeding, has the statue. And at this point, he confesses. He confesses. And Yolanda calmly walks away. Sweeney doesn't buy this exactly, but he also wants to figure out what's happened to her. He tracks her down, talks to a guy, a cabbie, tracks her down to this run-down flop house, this apartment. And here she tries to set the dog on him as well. And he's able to keep the dog calm while the police finally show up. Because what it turns out is she'd stabbed herself, and she was the person who stabbed the other dancer who had worked at the club. The psycho was her. There's enough of a whodunit element that you don't know for a fact. You go, okay, she might be. This might be her. But you're not positive. So it's not bad in that regard. It's not a real strong whodunit with a lot of clues and twists and turns. Really more of a psychological thing. But pretty effective. And so he leads her outside. She's in a daze. She's had a separation from reality here. They place her in the ambulance. You see her through the window. Remember, you see her a lot through windows, mirrors. That's kind of the theme running through. And the ambulance takes her back to the asylum. And that's the end of the film. So again, what do you get with Screaming Mimi? It's a pretty solid, pretty decent film as a film noir. It's got the psychological edge to it. It's serious. It's also lurid. And it's that lurid element that usually would be like, oh, this is one of those drive-in kind of little bit of a fetish picture. And take it down quite a bit. It doesn't quite do that, though. It sort of works into the overall scheme of the film. But what you mostly have is unbelievable cinematography. It's gorgeous. This movie strikes well above its weight in terms of cinematography. Guffey's a 2-time Academy Award winner. He did a lot of work with film noir. He also then later on comes out and sort of, I don't know if he invents it, but he kind of creates the look of color 70s films, that sort of flat, gritty look that he kind of created for Bonnie and Clyde. You see a lot of that in that period. So had his period with film noir, later did some interesting things with color. He was a very talented man. Why watch this film? Well, the primary reason is for his cinematography. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I found a good enough copy that I could really enjoy it from that standpoint. I've watched it now a couple times just to refresh me a little bit, but also I wanted to look at it again. It's really gorgeous. Yes, Anita Ekberg, she's a babe. You know, she's 2 years away from La Dolce Vita in this movie. You know, she was a sex symbol, no doubt about it. She does a fairly good job acting in this. Not great, not outstanding, but fairly good. It works overall. There's a few scenes that are a little bit weak. Yeah, she's probably there largely because she was a babe. But there's so much more to the film. The character actors, the stuff going on between Sweeney, between Greenwood, the crowd shots. There's a lot of interesting angles to this movie. I do recommend it. Again, I would probably say overall, it's a C+ kind of movie. But the cinematography is like A+. If you're interested in film from that angle, watch Screaming Mimi. If you haven't seen it before, I think you'll really be happy with it. Just gorgeous shots, gorgeous shots. But I don't think you're going to be upset with the film in general. It's pretty entertaining. It's pretty engaging. Carey does a nice job. Towns does a great job. Good character work all around. Gypsy Rosalie's pretty good in it as well. She has one musical number that didn't really hit for me. It was fine, though. But I do recommend this film. So, what say you? Have you seen this film? What do you think of it? If you want to chat about the movie, please leave some comments, and I'd be happy to talk with you. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If you enjoyed this review, please hit like. Think about maybe subscribing. Maybe share with a friend if you got somebody who's into film noir, into cinematography. Maybe they'd be interested in this review. If nothing else, just as a recommendation to check out this film. I appreciate any likes, any subscriptions, any shares. Helps my little channel grow. So until next time, God bless everybody. Be kind to one another. Try to have a little bit of fun out there. And I'll see you hopefully soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.